The lonely life of a medieval shepherd. Hey guys, tonight we are leaving the noise of the world behind completely. We are going to the high hills, where the only sound is the wind and the stars. We are joining the medieval shepherd on his long, lonely watch. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Now, wrap your blanket around you, imagine the fresh, cold air, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stand at the edge of the world. At least that is how it feels. Behind you, somewhere far below in the valleys that cradle civilization, there are towns with their markets and their churches, their smithies ringing with hammer strikes, their taverns full of laughter and argument. There are voices there, hundreds of voices, thousands perhaps, if you were to count every soul in every village between here and the coast. But up here, in the high highlands, in this year of our Lord 1300, there are no voices at all. The wind moves through the long grass with a sound like the ocean, though you have never seen the ocean. You have heard travelers speak of it, merchants who came through your village when you were a boy, men who smelled of salt and distance. They described water that stretched to the horizon, waves that rose and fell with their own rhythm, independent of any human hand. The grass around you now moves like that. It bends and rises, in long rolling patterns that follow the contours of the hills. The blades are tall here, reaching past your knees in places, silver green in the late afternoon light. The wind never stops. That is something you learned in your first week on these hills. Down in the valleys, the wind comes and goes. It gusts on storm days, rattles the shutters, makes the thatched roofs whisper and shift. Then it passes, and there is stillness. But here, at this elevation, the wind is a permanent resident. It is as much a part of the landscape as the stones and the heather. Sometimes it blows gently, a constant pressure against your face, cool and clean. Other times it howls, tearing at your cloak, making your eyes water, forcing you to turn your back to it and bend forward as you walk. But it never, ever stops. You have grown accustomed to it now, after 3 years up here. At first, the constant movement unsettled you, the grass never being still, the clouds always racing overhead, the feeling that everything around you was in motion while you stood fixed in place. It made you dizzy sometimes, in those early days. You would lie in your hut at night and still feel the world moving, as if the earth itself were breathing beneath you. Now you barely notice it. The wind has become like your own heartbeat, something that continues without thought, without attention. You only notice it when it changes, when it shifts direction or picks up speed. Then you lift your head, you read the air, you judge whether a storm is coming or whether this is just the hills flexing their muscles, reminding you of their power. The light here is different too. Down in the valleys, light is broken up by buildings, by trees, by the walls of your neighbors' homes. It comes in pieces, in shafts through windows, in the dappled patterns beneath leaves. But up here, the light is total. When the sun rises, it illuminates everything at once. There are no shadows except the ones cast by the occasional standing stone or the rare twisted tree that has managed to anchor itself against the wind. The sky occupies half of everything you see, perhaps more than half. The land rises and falls in gentle swells, but the sky dominates, stretching from horizon to horizon in an unbroken dome of blue or gray, or the deep purple that comes before rain. You can see weather coming from miles away. This morning, you watched a rainstorm approach from the west. It started as a dark smudge on the horizon, a thickening of the air. Then it became a curtain, a visible wall of falling water that moved across the landscape with startling speed. You had time to gather your cloak around you, to call the dog close, to position yourself behind a large boulder that serves as one of your landmarks. The rain hit like a wave, sudden and complete, soaking everything in seconds. The sheep turned their backs to it, patient and resigned. And then, 15 minutes later, it was gone, racing off toward the eastern hills, and the sun broke through again, making the wet grass sparkle like a field of scattered jewels. This is the rhythm of your days now. Weather and light, wind and silence. The silence is the most striking thing. You remember noise. You were raised in it. Your father was a cobbler, and your childhood home was on a street that connected the market square to the church. All day long, people passed your door. Carts rattled over the stones. Neighbors called to each other. Children played in the narrow space between buildings, their shouts echoing off the walls. The church bells marked the hours, deep and resonant. On market days, the din was constant, a river of sound that flowed through the streets. Vendors crying their wares, animals bleating and lowing, the creak and groan of wooden stalls being assembled and disassembled. Even at night there was noise, dogs barking, a baby crying in a neighboring house, the watch calling out the hours, the occasional drunk singing his way home from the tavern. Silence was rare and brief, a gap between sounds rather than a presence in itself. Here, silence is the foundation of everything. It is not truly silent, of course. There is the wind, always the wind. There is the movement of the sheep, the soft impact of their hooves on grass, the occasional bleat. There is the cry of birds, the curlews and the ravens that patrol the hills. There is the sound of your own breathing, your own footsteps, the creak of your leather belt, and the rustle of your woolen cloak. But there are no human sounds, no voices, no conversations happening just out of sight, no background hum of a community going about its business. At first, this silence felt hostile. It pressed in on you. You found yourself talking aloud just to break it, commenting on the weather to the dog, narrating your actions as you worked. The sound of your own voice startled you sometimes, harsh and intrusive in the quiet. You sang songs you remembered from childhood, working songs and tavern songs, anything to fill the air with something human. But the silence absorbed everything. Your voice carried for a moment and then disappeared, swallowed by the vastness around you. The hills did not care about your songs. They did not respond. They simply continued being hills, massive and patient and utterly indifferent to your presence. Gradually, you stopped fighting it. You allowed the silence to become normal. Now you can go for days without speaking a word. There is no need. The dog understands you without speech, reading your gestures and your posture. The sheep do not need instruction. They know their business better than you do, and there is no one else to talk to. Sometimes, once a month or so, you see another person, a fellow shepherd, far across a neighboring valley, a small figure moving against the green. You might raise your staff in greeting, and he might do the same, two vertical lines briefly interrupting the horizontal landscape. But you are too far apart for conversation. You do not know his name. He does not know yours. You are simply two practitioners of the same lonely trade, acknowledging each other's existence before returning to your separate solitudes. The landscape itself is beautiful in a way that took you time to understand. There is nothing dramatic here. No towering mountains, no plunging cliffs, no roaring waterfalls. Just hills, rising and falling in long, patient waves. Just grass, interrupted occasionally by patches of heather that bloom purple in late summer. Just stones, scattered randomly or arranged in ancient patterns by people long dead for purposes long forgotten. But the scale of it has its own majesty. The way the hills repeat themselves into the distance, layer after layer, each one slightly hazier than the last, until they fade into blue and then into nothing. The way the clouds cast enormous shadows that slide across the landscape, darkening whole sections of the world as they pass. The way the weather creates a constantly changing pattern of light and shadow, sun and rain, clarity and mist. You have learned to read this landscape like a book. Every rock, every hollow, every rise has become familiar. You know where the grass is sweetest and the sheep will graze longest. You know where springs emerge from the hillside, cold and clean, where you can refill your water skin. You know which areas grow boggy after rain, where the ground becomes treacherous and can trap an unwary sheep. You know where the wind breaks, where you can find shelter when a storm comes in hard. The seasons move slowly here, but they move. Now, in the autumn of this year 1300, the grass is beginning to lose its vibrant green, fading toward gold. The air has a sharper edge in the mornings. The sun rises later and sets earlier, and you have noticed the angle of the light changing, becoming more horizontal, casting longer shadows. Soon, winter will come to the high highlands. The grass will be touched by frost each morning. Snow will dust the higher peaks. The wind will carry real cold, the kind that gets through even your layers of wool and makes your fingers numb. But that is ahead. For now, in this moment, you stand in the afternoon light with the wind moving through the grass and the sheep scattered across the hillside below you like white stones thrown by a careless hand. The sky is clear today, a pale blue that seems almost white near the horizon. A single hawk circles far above, riding the updrafts, hunting for rabbits or voles in the grass. You plant your staff in the ground and rest both hands on its worn top. Your dog sits at your side, panting slightly, his tongue lolling. Together, you survey your domain. This is your world now, this emptiness, this silence, this wind-scoured isolation at the top of the world. This is where you belong. Section 2. The Solitude. You were not born to this life. That is something you remind yourself of occasionally, though the memories of your previous existence have begun to feel dreamlike, as if they belong to someone else. You were a town child. You grew up surrounded by walls, both literal walls of stone and timber and the invisible walls created by crowds, by constant proximity to others. The town where you spent your first 15 years was not large by any measure. Perhaps 200 families lived within its boundaries. But to you, as a child, it seemed enormous, a maze of streets and alleys, courtyards and common spaces. You knew every corner of it. You knew which baker would sometimes give you a scrap of bread if you ran an errand. You knew which dog would bark but not bite, which would do both. You knew where the older boys gathered to play dice, and which narrow passages were best for losing yourself when your mother called you to chores. Everything happened close together there. Your home was separated from your neighbors by a single wall, thin enough that you could hear conversations through it, hear arguments and laughter, hear the rhythm of their lives running parallel to your own. The street outside your door was never empty for long. Morning brought the milk seller with her cart, the water bearer with his yoke, the priest walking to morning prayers. Afternoon brought merchants and customers, craftsmen and laborers, the whole machinery of a small community conducting its business. Evening brought people home from the fields beyond the walls, farmers and shepherds who lived outside, but came in for safety and society. You were never alone. Even when you sought solitude, it was a limited thing. You might sneak away to the loft above your father's workshop, up where he stored leather and old shoes waiting for repair. You might sit in the dim light filtering through gaps in the roof and imagine you were somewhere else. But below you, you could hear your father working, the tap of his hammer, the rasp of his knife trimming leather. Nearby, your mother would be cooking or mending, your sisters arguing over some minor slight. You could hide from sight, but you could never escape the presence of other people. They were always there, just beyond whatever thin barrier you erected. You thought you wanted solitude then. You remember fantasizing about it, imagining wide-open spaces where you could go for hours without seeing anyone, without being called to help with this or that, without being watched and judged, and included in the constant negotiation of family and community life. Now you have it, and you understand that you had no idea what solitude actually meant. The difference between town life and hill life is not merely one of degree. It is not that there are fewer people here. It is that the entire structure of existence is different. In town, your life was woven into the lives of others. Your actions affected them. Their actions affected you. You existed in a web of relationships and obligations, expectations and traditions. You were someone's son, someone's neighbor, someone's friend, someone's apprentice. You were known. You had a place in a complex social structure that gave your life shape and meaning. Here, you have none of that. You are simply a man with sheep, on a hill under the sky. No one knows what you do each day. No one cares whether you work hard or sit idle, whether you move the flock to new grazing or let them settle where they are. There are no neighbors to judge you, no family to disappoint, no community standards to maintain. Your master, the man who owns these sheep, visits perhaps 4 times a year, arriving with supplies and taking away wool. He checks the flock's condition, counts the animals, and leaves again. He does not care how you spend your hours, as long as the sheep are healthy and the wool is good. You are free, in a way you never imagined possible. And you are lonely in a way you never imagined possible. These two facts exist together, inseparable. The freedom and the loneliness are the same thing, viewed from different angles. In the first months, the loneliness was physical, an actual ache in your chest. You craved conversation so badly that you dreamed about it. You would wake from dreams of being in the tavern, surrounded by noise and warmth and laughter, and the disappointment of waking to silence and cold and emptiness was almost unbearable. You counted the days until your master's next visit, and when he came, you talked too much, too fast, unloading weeks of stored words in a torrent that clearly made him uncomfortable. He would nod politely, answer your questions briefly, and leave as quickly as possible, probably relieved to be away from this desperate, chattering creature you had become. You considered quitting many times that first winter. The isolation felt like a weight pressing down on you. The darkness came early and stayed late. The wind was cruel. The cold seeped into everything. And worst of all was the silence, the relentless, crushing silence that made you feel as if you were disappearing, as if without anyone to see you or hear you, you might simply cease to exist. But you needed the work. Your family needed the money you sent back with your master. And there was something else too, something you could not quite name at first. Something about the hills themselves, about the stark beauty of the landscape, about the way the work itself was simple and clear. Sheep need grass and water and protection. That is all. There are no politics here, no competing interests, no complex social calculations. Just basic physical needs and your ability to meet them. So you stayed, and gradually something changed. You cannot point to a specific moment when it happened. It was a slow transformation, like the way winter becomes spring, no single day marking the transition, but one day you realize that everything is different. The loneliness did not disappear exactly, but it became bearable. It became part of the texture of your life, rather than a foreign presence you were fighting against. You began to notice things you had been too miserable to see before. The way the light changes throughout the day, creating different moods, different versions of the same landscape. The individual personalities of the sheep, which had seemed like an indistinguishable mass at first, but were actually distinct creatures with their own habits and preferences. The intelligence of the dog, his ability to understand not just commands but intentions, to know what you needed before you asked for it. You discovered that solitude has qualities that crowds lack. In town, you were constantly reacting. Someone spoke to you and you responded. Someone needed help and you provided it. Someone blocked your path and you moved around them. Your attention was pulled in a dozen directions, fragmented among competing demands. You had no sustained focus, no deep concentration. Everything was interruption and adjustment. Here, you can think a single thought for hours. You can watch a cloud move across the sky from horizon to horizon, observing every shift in its shape, every change in the light it casts on the hills below. You can follow a line of reasoning to its conclusion without being derailed. You can notice small things, tiny details of the natural world that you never would have seen in your previous life. You have become, in a way, a guardian of the hills. That phrase came to you one evening as you stood watching the sun set, the sheep settled and quiet around you, the dog warm against your leg. guardian of the hills. It felt right. You are not merely working here. You are keeping watch. You are the human presence in this vast non-human world. You are bearing witness to the turning of the days, the change of the seasons, the ancient rhythms that continue regardless of human concerns. In town, you were insignificant, one person among hundreds, easily replaced, barely noticed. Here, you are the only person for miles in any direction. Your presence matters, if only to the sheep, if only to the dog. You are holding a space, maintaining a vigil, participating in something larger than yourself. This gives you a sense of purpose that your life in town never did. Your father was a good cobbler, and he tried to teach you the trade with patience and care. But you could never shake the feeling that it did not matter. People needed shoes, yes, but there were other cobblers. If your father's shop closed tomorrow, someone else would fill the need. The work was necessary, but not unique. You were learning a trade that would allow you to survive, to make a living, but it did not touch anything deeper. Here, the work feels essential in a different way. These sheep depend on you for their survival, not on shepherds in general, but on you specifically. You are responsible for them. You must ensure they have good grazing, that they do not wander into bogs or fall from slopes, that no predator picks them off. When a ewe struggles with birth, it is your hands that must help bring the lamb into the world. When a sheep is injured, it is your skill with the tar and the bandage that will determine whether it recovers or dies. This responsibility is heavy, but it is also satisfying in a way that is hard to articulate. You matter here. Your actions have clear consequences. The world is simple and direct. There is no pretense, no social performance, no need to manage how others perceive you. You are alone, but you are also free. Free from judgment, from expectation, from the constant low-level anxiety of navigating social situations. Free to be exactly who you are without modification or apology. No one is watching. No one is keeping score. You can be awkward, strange, silent, foolish, and it affects nothing. You can talk to yourself, sing badly, make mistakes, and there is no embarrassment because there is no audience. This freedom has allowed you to discover who you actually are beneath the social self you presented in town. You have learned that you are naturally quiet, that you think slowly and carefully, that you notice details others might miss. You have learned that you have patience, that you can endure discomfort and boredom without complaint. You have learned that you are content with simple pleasures, a dry place to sleep, hot food in your belly, the satisfaction of a day's work well done. You have also learned your limits. You know now that you need some human contact, even if only rarely. Those visits from your master, brief and businesslike as they are, sustain you. You look forward to them with an intensity that would probably seem pathetic to someone who lived in town. And once every few months, you leave the flock in the care of another shepherd, an older man who is hired specifically for this purpose, and you walk down to the nearest village. You stay only a few hours. You buy supplies. You exchange a few words with the shopkeeper. You sit in the tavern and nurse a single cup of ale while listening to conversations around you. You do not try to join in. You have learned that you have forgotten how. The rhythms of conversation, the give and take, the casual banter that comes so easily to people who live in community, these skills have atrophied in you. When you try to speak, your voice sounds wrong, too loud or too soft. You cannot find the right tone. You say things that make sense to you but seem to land strangely with others. So you mainly listen. You absorb the sound of human voices, the presence of other bodies, the warmth of a fire, and the smell of cooking food, and the sight of faces. You refill some internal reservoir that had run dry. And then, before it becomes too much, before the noise and the closeness begin to feel oppressive, you gather your supplies and walk back up into the hills. The return journey always brings a sense of relief. As you climb higher and the sounds of the village fade behind you, as the air becomes clearer and colder, as the landscape opens up around you, you feel yourself settling back into your proper place. The noise and confusion of human society, which seemed so appealing from a distance, revealed itself as overwhelming once you were actually in it. This, the hills and the sky and the silence, this is where you belong now. You have become something different from the boy who left town 3 years ago. That boy could not have imagined spending days without speaking. That boy needed constant companionship, constant stimulation. That boy would have found this life unbearable. You are no longer that boy. You have been shaped by the hills, worn smooth by the wind, simplified by the solitude. You have been reduced to something essential, something basic. And in that reduction, you have found a kind of peace that your previous life, for all its noise and company, never provided. You are alone on these hills, profoundly, absolutely alone in a way that most people never experience. And somehow, against all expectation, you have learned to make that aloneness bearable, more than bearable. On good days, when the sun is warm and the sheep are content and the dog is companionable at your side, you would even say you are happy. This is your life now, this solitude, this silence, this role as guardian of the hills. And you have accepted it, made peace with it, even learned to love it. Section 3. The Shepherd's Hut. Your home, such as it is, stands about half a mile from where you currently watch the flock. You can see it from here if you turn and look northeast, a small dark shape against the green of the hillside. At this distance, it looks like a child's toy, something that might be picked up and moved by a careless hand, which, in a sense, is exactly what it is designed to be. The shepherd's hut. It is a strange dwelling, unlike anything you knew in your previous life. In town, houses were permanent structures, rooted to the earth through foundations of stone. They were meant to last generations, solid expressions of stability and continuity. Your family had lived in the same house for as long as anyone could remember. The walls held the marks of your growth, notches your father had carved to track your height year by year. The floor was worn smooth by decades of footsteps in the same patterns. Your hut has no such permanence. It is a temporary shelter, a tool more than a home. Its entire purpose is mobility. The structure sits on a pair of iron wheels, large and sturdy, each nearly as tall as your waist. These wheels are the foundation of everything, the essential feature that defines what the hut is. They allow the entire structure to be moved, following the flock as the seasons change, as the grazing patterns shift, as the needs of the sheep dictate. The hut itself is small, perhaps 10 feet long and 6 feet wide, just enough space for a narrow bed, a small stove, and storage for your essential supplies. The walls are made of untreated wood, simple planks fitted together with basic carpentry. There is a door on one end, made of the same rough planks, hung on leather hinges that creak when you open it. A single window on the side allows light in during the day, covered at night by a wooden shutter you can secure from inside. The roof is curved, arching gently from one side to the other. This shape serves a practical purpose, allowing rain and snow to slide off rather than accumulating and adding weight. The curve also provides a surprising amount of interior headroom. You can stand upright in the center, though you must duck when you move toward either side. The smell of the hut is something you notice every time you enter, though you have grown so accustomed to it that you often forget it is there. It is the smell of untreated wood, fresh and slightly sharp, mixed with smoke from the stove, mixed with wool and lanolin and your own body, mixed with whatever you have been cooking. It is not an unpleasant smell, exactly, though visitors might find it overwhelming. To you, it is simply the smell of home. The wood itself is pine, chosen for its light weight and availability. The planks were cut rough and assembled quickly. There was no attempt at fine finish, no sanding or polishing. The wood remains splintered in places, the grain rough against your hand. You have learned to be careful, to avoid dragging your palm along the walls carelessly, to watch for protruding nails and sharp edges. But this roughness is part of the hut's character. It is a working structure, built for function rather than beauty. Every element serves a purpose. There is no decoration, no ornament, nothing included merely for appearance. This absolute utility gives the hut a kind of honest simplicity that you have come to appreciate. The interior dimensions are tight. When you lie on your bed, you can reach out and touch both walls without fully extending your arms. There is no room to pace, no space for unnecessary movement. Everything must be kept organized, every item in its place, or the small space becomes chaotic and unlivable. You have become meticulous in ways you never were before. In your family home, you could be careless. If you dropped your coat on the floor, it was an untidiness but not a crisis. Here, if you drop something and do not immediately pick it up, you will trip over it within minutes. The hut has taught you discipline through simple necessity. Your bed is the main feature of the interior. It runs along one wall, taking up nearly half the available floor space. It is a simple construction, a wooden frame with rope webbing stretched across it, a thin mattress stuffed with straw resting on top. The mattress is covered with one of your woolen cloaks, which serves as a sheet. Another cloak, the heaviest one you own, serves as a blanket. The bed is not comfortable by any civilized standard. The straw compresses unevenly, creating lumps and hard spots. The frame creaks and shifts when you move. On cold nights, drafts find their way through gaps in the walls and slide under your covers. But it is infinitely better than sleeping on the ground, which you did for the first 2 weeks before the hut was delivered to you. After those nights on hard earth with only your cloak between you and the cold, even this crude bed felt luxurious. Opposite the bed, against the other wall, stands your stove. It is a small iron box, barely 2 feet on each side, with a chimney pipe that extends up through the roof. The stove is essential to your survival, particularly in winter. It provides heat. It allows you to cook. It gives you a focal point during the long, dark evenings. The stove burns peat, which you cut from designated areas of the hills and stack beside the hut to dry. Peat burns slowly and provides steady heat, though the smoke has a distinctive smell that permeates everything. Your clothes, your hair, your skin, all carry the scent of peat smoke. You barely notice it anymore, but on your rare visits to the village, people sometimes wrinkle their noses when you approach. Above the stove, you have arranged a shelf made from a single plank of wood. This holds your cooking implements: a pot, a pan, a wooden spoon, a knife, a cup, a bowl. All of them are crude by town standards, made from cheap materials, dented and stained from use. But they are adequate. You can boil water, cook porridge, fry whatever meat you manage to catch or trade for. You are not starving, though the diet is monotonous. Storage is a constant challenge in such a small space. You have learned to use every available inch. Pegs on the walls hold your extra clothing, your spare cloak, your hat. A box under the bed holds your personal items: a comb, a whetstone for sharpening your knife, a small leather pouch containing the coins you have saved, a few other odds and ends. Another box near the door holds food supplies: oats, dried peas, salt, a small amount of flour, whatever else you have managed to acquire. The floor is simply the wooden platform that sits atop the axle connecting the two wheels. It is solid enough, but not level. The hut has settled slightly over time, and there is a gentle slope from front to back. You have grown so used to this slope that you do not consciously notice it anymore. Your body automatically adjusts, leaning slightly forward when you walk toward the door, compensating without thought. The single window provides just enough light during the day. It is small, perhaps a foot square, covered with a piece of old cloth that lets light through while keeping out the worst of the weather. When you want fresh air, you can roll up the cloth and secure it. When the wind is fierce or the rain is driving hard, you close the wooden shutter and resign yourself to darkness and the dim glow of a candle. You own 3 candles, precious items that you use sparingly. Each one represents hours of light, of being able to see after the sun has set, of being able to do small tasks or simply sit and think without being swallowed entirely by darkness. You light them only when necessary, and you never let them burn unattended. Fire is a constant danger in such a small wooden space, and you are always conscious of it, always careful. The door is secured at night with a simple wooden bar that drops into brackets on either side. This provides minimal security, but security from what? There are no thieves on these hills. No one is going to walk for hours through difficult terrain to steal a shepherd's meager possessions. The bar is more about keeping the door from blowing open in high winds than about protection from human threats. The hut's mobility is both its greatest feature and its greatest limitation. The wheels allow it to be moved, which is essential. As the seasons change, you must move the flock to different areas. The sheep cannot graze the same land year-round, or the grass would be destroyed. So the flock migrates in a slow rotation, following patterns established long before you arrived, and the hut follows the flock. Moving the hut is a significant undertaking. It requires the help of 2 horses, which your master provides when the time comes. The horses are hitched to a wooden shaft attached to the front of the hut, and they pull it slowly across the hills to its new location. You walk alongside, guiding them, watching to make sure the hut does not tip on uneven ground, making sure the wheels do not stick in soft earth. It is always an anxious process. The hut seems so stable when it is settled, but once it is moving, its fragility becomes apparent. It rocks and sways. It creaks alarmingly. You can see the walls flexing slightly with each bump and jolt. You are always half convinced that this will be the journey when something breaks, when a wheel cracks or the axle snaps or the whole structure simply comes apart. But so far, it has held together. The design is simple but sound. The hut has been making these journeys for years, probably decades. You are not the first shepherd to live in it, and you likely will not be the last. It is a tool passed from one worker to the next, maintained just well enough to remain functional. Between moves, you try to make the hut as stable as possible. You use rocks to chock the wheels, preventing any shifting. You check the roof regularly for leaks, patching any gaps with tar. You make sure the stovepipe is secure, that no gaps have opened where smoke could escape into the living space. You keep everything as tight and sound as you can, knowing that this small wooden box is all that stands between you and the elements. On wild nights, when storms tear across the hills and the wind screams and rain hammers against the walls, the hut feels desperately inadequate. It shakes. It groans. You lie in your bed and listen to the whole structure protesting, and you wonder if this will be the storm that finally tears it apart. The darkness inside is complete. The noise is enormous. You can feel the hut rocking slightly on its wheels despite the chocks. The dog presses against you, uneasy, and you put your hand on his head and tell him it will be all right, though you are not certain of this yourself. But morning always comes. The storm passes. You open the door to find the hills washed clean, the grass flattened but recovering, the sky clearing. The hut has held. It has survived another night, as it has survived hundreds of nights before. And you feel grateful to it, this small wooden box on iron wheels. It is not much, but it is yours. It is shelter and safety. It is the closest thing you have to home in this vast, empty landscape. Within its tight walls, you can escape the wind. You can warm yourself at the stove. You can lie down and rest. You can have a few hours of privacy, of not being watched by the sky. The hut is more than a structure. It is a statement of human presence in a place that does not naturally accommodate humans. It is your foothold, your claim, your small circle of domestic space carved out of the wild. Every time you return to it after a day spent wandering the hills with the flock, every time you see it waiting for you in the distance, small and dark and familiar, you feel something close to affection. It is home, temporary, mobile, crude, but home nonetheless. Section 4. The Tools. The tools of your trade are few, and each one is essential. You learned this early in your apprenticeship as a shepherd, back when you were still learning the work, still discovering what this life would actually require. You came to the hills with far too many possessions, belongings that seemed important in town, but proved useless here. A spare pair of shoes, for instance, which seemed sensible until you realized that your feet never dried properly in this climate, and leather rots when it stays wet. A wooden cup carved with decorative patterns, a gift from your mother, which cracked the first time it froze. A small book of prayers, which the damp destroyed within a month, the pages swelling and sticking together, the ink running until the words became illegible smudges. You learned to pare down, to keep only what you actually used, what actually served a purpose. Now your possessions fit into two categories, what you wear and what you carry. Everything else is expendable, replaceable, or unnecessary. The most important tool you own is your crook. It stands as tall as your shoulder, a staff of ash wood, straight and strong. The wood is pale, almost white where it is fresh, darkening to gray where your hands have gripped it thousands of times. The grain is fine and even, speaking to the quality of the tree it came from, grown straight and true in some lowland forest where trees can afford to reach for the sky rather than hunching against constant wind. The top of the crook curves into a hook, carefully shaped, smooth, and functional. This hook is what makes it more than just a walking stick. With it, you can catch a sheep by the leg or neck when you need to examine it, hold it steady for treatment, or prevent it from bolting. The hook is not sharp, which would risk injuring the animal, but it is strong enough to take considerable weight and force. The crook was made by a specialist, a craftsman who does nothing but make shepherd's staffs. You did not commission it yourself. It came with the job, part of the equipment provided by your master. But in the years you have carried it, it has become yours in every meaningful sense. Your hand knows its weight and balance. Your body knows its length. You can judge distances using it as a reference. Plant it in the ground to gauge the boggy softness of uncertain terrain. Use it to test the depth of streams before crossing. The crook is an extension of yourself. You carry it constantly, everywhere you go. It helps you walk, providing a third point of contact with the ground when you climb steep slopes or navigate rocky areas. It helps you with the sheep, allowing you to reach and guide without having to chase and grab. It helps you with the dog, pointing direction, indicating which part of the flock needs attention. And it serves as a weapon, though you rarely think of it in those terms. Against dogs gone wild or the occasional fox, the heavy staff provides both reach and force. You have used it this way only twice, but knowing you can is a comfort on the long nights when you hear movement in the darkness beyond your hut. The wood itself is warm to the touch, a quality you appreciate during cold mornings when metal tools would burn your fingers with their chill. You have carved nothing into it, added no personal marks or decorations. It is what it is, a tool, and that is enough. The second essential tool is your lantern. It is a simple construction, an iron frame holding glass panels on four sides with a door that opens to allow you to light the candle inside. A wire handle at the top lets you carry it or hang it from a hook. When lit, the lantern provides a small circle of warm light, enough to see by in the darkness, not enough to illuminate more than a few feet around you. You carry the lantern when you must check the flock at night, when you have heard sounds that worry you, when a ewe is giving birth and you need to see what you are doing. The darkness on these hills is absolute when there is no moon, a blackness that feels almost solid, that presses against your eyes. The lantern pushes back that darkness just enough to make movement possible. The glass panels are precious, fragile things. You have broken two of them in your time here, once dropping the lantern when you stumbled on uneven ground, once when a sudden gust of wind slammed a door against the lantern where it hung inside the hut. Each time, your master had to bring a replacement panel on his next visit, and each time he deducted the cost from your wages. You have learned to be extraordinarily careful with it, to always check that it is secure before releasing your grip, to protect it from impacts and sudden forces. The candles you burn in it are made from mutton fat, rendered down and poured into molds. They smell strongly when they burn, a thick animal scent that mingles with the smell of the peat smoke and the lanolin in your clothes to create the distinctive odor of shepherd life. These candles burn faster than wax candles would, but they are cheaper and more readily available. You can make them yourself if you must, though the process is tedious and messy. The third essential tool is your tar box. It is a small wooden container, no bigger than your fist, with a tight-fitting lid. Inside, it holds pine tar, thick and sticky, black as night. This tar is medicine, bandage, and sealant all in one. When a sheep is injured, when the skin is broken by thorn or rock or the teeth of a predator, you clean the wound as best you can and then seal it with tar. The tar keeps out moisture and dirt. It protects against infection. It gives the flesh beneath a chance to heal. You also use the tar for rot, the affliction that attacks sheep's feet in wet conditions. The hooves become soft, infected, painful. The sheep limps, falls behind the flock, becomes vulnerable. You catch the animal, hold it steady with your crook, and carefully clean the affected hoof with your knife, cutting away the rotten tissue. Then you pack the cavity with tar and hope that the healing will outpace the infection. Not every sheep you treat survives. Some injuries are too severe, some infections too advanced. But the tar gives them a chance, and over time you have become skilled at using it. Your hands know how much to apply, how to work it into the wound, how to check days later whether the treatment is working. The tar stains everything it touches. Your fingers are often black with it. The smell clings to you, but it is a smell you have come to associate with care, with the satisfaction of helping a suffering animal, with the small victories that make this work bearable. Your knife is the fourth essential tool, though it is the simplest of all. It is a common working knife, the kind any laborer might carry. The blade is perhaps 4 inches long, made of iron that you keep sharp with regular attention on your whetstone. The handle is wood, worn smooth by your grip, dark with accumulated oil and dirt. You use this knife for everything. Cutting rope, trimming hooves, preparing your food, cutting peat, whittling on the rare occasions when you feel moved to make something. The knife lives in a leather sheath on your belt. You are so accustomed to its weight there that you feel oddly unbalanced on the rare occasions when you remove it. Your hand often goes to it without thought, checking that it is still there, drawing comfort from its presence. You sharpen it every few days, sitting outside your hut in the evening light, the whetstone across your knee, drawing the blade along it in long, smooth strokes, feeling the edge become keener. The rhythm of sharpening is meditative. The soft sound of steel on stone, the slight warming of the blade as friction creates heat, the visible progress as the edge catches the light. It is one of the small satisfactions of your life, maintaining this tool, keeping it ready. These are your primary tools: crook, lantern, tar box, knife. But there are other small items that you rely on regularly. A length of rope, coiled and carried over your shoulder, useful for a dozen purposes. Leading a stubborn sheep. Creating a temporary pen by stringing it between rocks. Securing something that needs to be held in place. A water skin made from the stomach of a sheep, treated and dried until it becomes a flexible container. You fill it each morning from a spring or stream and carry your day's water supply with you as you move across the hills. A small leather pouch on your belt containing flint and steel for starting fires. Getting fire to catch in wind and damp is a skill you have developed over time, a matter of finding the right tinder, sheltering the first tiny flame, nursing it into something that will sustain itself. A wooden whistle for calling the dog. The sound carries farther than your voice and can be heard even in strong wind. You have developed a vocabulary of whistles, different patterns that mean different things, commands that the dog has learned to interpret. A single sharp note means stop and look at me. Two quick notes mean go left. Three notes mean go right. A long descending note means come back to me. These tools are not impressive. None of them is expensive or rare. Any of them could be replaced relatively easily if lost or broken. But together, they make your work possible. They are the interface between you and the hills, between your human limitations and the demands of the landscape and the flock. You maintain them carefully. Each evening, before you settle into your hut for the night, you check each item. Is the crook still sound, no cracks developing in the wood? Is the lantern clean, the glass intact, the candle supply adequate? Is the tar box sealed, the tar still usable? Is the knife sharp, the sheath secure? This maintenance is not separate from the work. It is part of the work, as essential as watching the sheep or moving them to fresh grazing. Your tools are what keep you capable, what allow you to meet the challenges that arise. Without them, you would be helpless, merely another animal on the hillside, unable to shape your environment or respond effectively to problems. The simplicity of your tools is, in its way, beautiful. There is no excess, no decoration, no element that does not serve a clear purpose. Each item has been refined over generations of use by shepherds who came before you, improved and simplified until only what is necessary remains. Picking up your crook, you are holding a design that is centuries old, proven by countless seasons in countless weathers. This connection to the past, to all the shepherds who have carried similar crooks and tar boxes and knives, gives you a sense of belonging to something larger than yourself. You are not inventing this life. You are continuing it, taking your place in a long tradition. The tools help you feel that connection. They are the same tools used by your grandfather's grandfather, and they will be used by shepherds long after you are gone. In town, possessions were about status, about display, about having more and better things than your neighbors. Here, possessions are purely functional. You have what you need, nothing more. There is a freedom in this simplicity, in knowing that everything you own fits into a small hut, that you could walk away tomorrow with everything important carried on your person. You are not weighed down. You are not accumulating. You are simply equipped, properly prepared for the work at hand. And that is enough. Section 5. The clothing. Your body is wrapped in layers of wool. This is the fundamental truth of shepherd life on these hills. Wool against your skin, wool over that, more wool on top. The sheep you guard also protect you, their fleece spun and woven into the only fabric that can withstand this climate. The innermost layer is a long woolen tunic, undyed and rough. It reaches to your knees and is belted at the waist with a strip of leather. The wool is coarse against your skin, scratchy when you first put it on each morning, but your body has grown accustomed to it. This tunic absorbs your sweat, holds warmth close to your body, provides the foundation for everything else. Over this goes a second tunic, slightly heavier, dyed a muddy brown from oak bark. The color serves a purpose beyond appearance. It hides the inevitable stains, the mud and tar and sheep dung that mark your daily work. In town, people wore light colors to show they could afford to keep them clean. Here, dark wool is practical, honest about the realities of the work. Your legs are covered in woolen hose, thick and sturdy, held up by ties to your belt. These protect your legs from thorns and rough grass, from the cold wind that sweeps across the hills. Over the hose, you wear leather gaiters that extend from ankle to knee, providing extra protection when you walk through wet grass or ford streams. But the most important piece of clothing you own is your cloak. It is enormous, heavy, made from wool so thick it is almost like felt. The cloak hangs from your shoulders to your ankles, wrapping your entire body in a cocoon of protection. During the day, you wear it clasped at your throat with a simple bronze pin. At night, you unpin it and spread it over yourself as a blanket. It serves both purposes equally well. The wool of the cloak has been treated with lanolin, the natural oil from sheep's fleece. Your master's wife applies this treatment every few months, working the oil deep into the fibers. The lanolin makes the wool water-resistant, not waterproof, but enough that light rain beads on the surface and runs off rather than soaking through. In heavy rain, the outer surface eventually becomes wet, but the thickness of the wool means the inner layers stay dry for hours. This waterproofing saves your life regularly. Without it, you would be soaked to the skin every day, and wetness in this climate means death. Cold alone you can survive. Wet and cold together will kill you, drawing heat from your body faster than you can generate it. The lanolin-treated wool keeps you dry enough to survive. The smell of lanolin is always with you. It is in your cloak, in all your wool clothing, in your hair and on your skin. You smell like sheep, like their oil and their wool. In town, this marked you immediately as a shepherd, set you apart. Here, it is simply the smell of survival. Your hands are protected by fingerless gloves, knitted from wool, allowing you to maintain dexterity while keeping your palms and wrists warm. Your head is covered by a simple woolen cap that pulls down over your ears. In the worst weather, you can pull your cloak's hood up over the cap, creating a double layer of protection. You own no other clothing. These pieces, worn in layers, washed occasionally when you can spare the time and the weather permits, are your entire wardrobe. They are enough. The wool keeps you warm even when wet. It breathes so you do not overheat when working hard, and it lasts season after season with minimal care. The weight of all these layers is significant. You are carrying perhaps 20 pounds of wool on your body at all times. But you have grown strong from this constant burden, and the weight itself provides a kind of comfort. You feel grounded, substantial, protected. At night, lying in your hut, you remove only your outer tunic and your cloak. Everything else stays on. The hut is too cold for sleeping naked or even lightly clothed. You need every layer, plus the cloak spread over you, to maintain warmth through the long, dark hours. Even then, some nights are so cold that you wake shivering and must get up to add more peat to the stove. This is your armor against the elements. Simple, functional, sufficient. The wool that grows on your sheep's backs, transformed by human hands into protection for human bodies. You are wrapped in the labor of countless women who spun this thread, wove this cloth, stitched these garments. You are connected to them, to that domestic world of spinning wheels and looms, even though you live apart from it. Your clothing will outlast you if properly cared for. These garments will pass to the next shepherd when your time on the hills is done. They are not personal possessions so much as tools, equipment for the work, worn by many men before you and destined for many after. Only the cloak feels truly yours, shaped by your body, marked by your use, familiar as your own skin. Section 6. The dog. The dog is not a pet. This distinction is important. In town, wealthy families sometimes kept dogs for companionship, small animals that served no purpose beyond providing amusement. Those dogs were decorative, useless, fed from the table, and allowed to sleep indoors. Your dog is nothing like that. He is a working animal, a tool as essential as your crook or your lantern. He is also, despite this, your only companion, the closest thing you have to a friend. You do not know his age. He was already mature when he came to you, assigned by your master along with the flock and the hut. A large animal, shaggy-coated, with fur that hangs in long strands and collects mud and burrs. His coloring is gray and black and brown, mottled and uneven, designed by nature to blend with rocks and shadows. His eyes are amber, intelligent, constantly watchful. He has no name. You never gave him one. Names seemed unnecessary, a human affectation. He responds to whistles, to gestures, to the tone of your voice. A name would add nothing. You call him dog when you must refer to him at all, which is rare since there is no one else to talk to about him. The dog lives outside. He sleeps curled against the side of your hut where it provides some shelter from the wind, or among the sheep where their bodies provide warmth. He never asks to come inside. The one time you invited him in, during a particularly brutal storm, he entered reluctantly and sat by the door looking miserable, clearly uncomfortable in the confined space. After an hour, he whined to be let out, and you opened the door and watched him trot into the storm with apparent relief. He prefers the outside world. That is where his work is, where his purpose lies. His job is to help you control the flock. Sheep are not particularly intelligent animals, but they are stubborn and surprisingly strong-willed. A single man cannot easily move 200 sheep where he wants them to go, but a man and a dog can do it efficiently. The dog understands the work instinctively. You did not train him. Someone else did that long before he came to you. He knows how to circle the flock, how to position himself to turn the animals in the desired direction, how to apply just enough pressure to keep them moving without panicking them. He knows when to bark and when to be silent, when to rush forward and when to hang back. You communicate with him through whistles and gestures, rarely through words. Over time, you have developed a shared language that requires minimal sound. A raised arm means one thing. A pointed finger means another. The dog reads your body, your posture, your attention, and responds appropriately. You have reached a level of cooperation that feels almost telepathic, though you know it is simply the result of spending every day together, learning each other's patterns. The bond between you is real but not sentimental. You feed him once a day, in the evening, usually scraps from your own meal supplemented with whatever he has caught during the day. He is an efficient hunter of rabbits and rats, and you often find him crunching bones, his muzzle bloody. You do not pet him often, though occasionally your hand will rest on his head, feeling the warmth of his skull, the silky fur of his ears. He tolerates this briefly, then pulls away to return to his patrol. He takes his duties seriously. At night, he positions himself between the flock and the darkness beyond. He does not sleep deeply, even when he appears to be resting. His ears are always moving, tracking sounds you cannot hear. Several times, you have been wakened by his low growl, a warning that something is wrong. You grab your crook and your lantern and follow him into the night to find a sheep in trouble or a fox circling the flock. The dog's senses are far superior to yours. He can hear a sheep in distress from a mile away. He can smell predators on the wind. He can see movement in darkness that appears complete to your human eyes. In many ways, he is more essential to the work than you are. The sheep would be lost without him. You would be lost without him. Sometimes you watch him working, running wide circles around the flock, and you feel something close to admiration. He is perfect at what he does. Every movement is efficient, purposeful, honed by generations of breeding and training. He is a specialist, built for this exact task, and he performs it with a competence you can only envy. The dog provides something else too, something harder to articulate. He is evidence that you are not completely alone. His presence makes the solitude bearable. You can look over and see him there, substantial and real, another living being who shares your experience of these hills. You do not talk to him, but you are aware of him constantly, and that awareness is a kind of companionship. On the coldest nights, when the wind is fierce and you are huddled in your hut, you sometimes think about the dog outside. You feel guilty, briefly, that you have shelter while he does not. But you know he is fine. He is built for this in ways you are not. His thick coat, his lower body temperature, his ability to curl into a tight ball all protect him adequately. And he would not want to be inside anyway. The hut would feel like a trap to him. You trust the dog completely. If he is calm, you are calm. If he is alert, you become alert. He is your early warning system, your assistant, your partner. The work would be possible without him, but it would be much harder, much lonelier, much more dangerous. When your time on these hills ends, when you eventually leave to return to whatever comes next, you will leave the dog behind. He will stay with the flock, will be passed to the next shepherd, will continue his work. This is understood. He is not yours. He belongs to the work itself, to the sheep, to the hills. You are merely borrowing him for a time. But you will miss him. This silent, competent, loyal creature who asks for nothing beyond food and purpose. This partner who has shared your solitude without complaint. When you imagine leaving, the thought of saying goodbye to the dog is harder than the thought of saying goodbye to the hut or the hills or even the work itself. For now, though, he is here, sitting at your side as you watch the flock, his ears pricked forward, his amber eyes scanning the landscape, his entire being focused on the job at hand. You are not alone on these hills. You have the dog, and that makes all the difference. Section 7. The Grazing. The sound of 200 sheep eating grass is like rain on a roof. It is constant, gentle, slightly irregular. A soft, continuous rustling and tearing and chewing that blends into a single steady sound. If you focus, you can pick out individual sheep, the slightly different rhythms of their jaws, but mostly it is just a wash of sound, the audio texture of the flock at work. This sound defines your days. The sheep are always eating. From the moment there is enough light to see by until the darkness forces them to settle for the night, they graze. They move slowly across the hillside, heads down, tearing mouthfuls of grass, chewing methodically, swallowing, taking another step, repeating the process. Their entire existence is this simple rhythm. Eat, move, eat, move, eat, move. Watching them is hypnotic. From a distance, the flock looks like a single organism, a white cloud drifting across the green hillside. But up close, you can see that it is composed of individuals, each with its own pattern of behavior. Some sheep are aggressive grazers, pushing forward, claiming the best patches. Others are followers, content to take what is left. Some move steadily, methodically working across the ground. Others are erratic, grazing intensely in one spot, then jumping ahead to a new location. The flock has a collective intelligence that no individual sheep possesses. They sense weather changes before you do, becoming restless before storms, settling peacefully before good weather. They know which areas have the best grazing, following ancient paths worn into the hillside by generations of sheep before them. They understand danger instinctively, bunching together when they feel threatened, spreading out when they feel safe. Your job is not to control them so much as to guide them. You keep them within certain boundaries, prevent them from wandering into dangerous areas, move them to fresh grazing when they have exhausted one section. But mostly, you just watch. You let them do what they know how to do, what they have been doing for thousands of years before you arrived. The movement of the flock across the hillside follows patterns you have learned to read. In the morning, they graze intensely, making up for the night's fast. By midday, they slow down, many of them lying down to chew their cud, the regurgitated grass that they process a second time. In the afternoon, they resume grazing but more leisurely, spread out more widely. As evening approaches, they begin to gather naturally, preparing for the night's rest. You position yourself where you can see most of the flock at once, usually on a slight rise with the dog nearby. From this vantage point, you scan constantly, counting silently, making sure all the animals are accounted for. 200 sheep is too many to count individually each time, so you break them into sections, estimating each group, adding the totals. If the numbers seem wrong, if a section looks too sparse, you investigate. Lost sheep are a constant concern. They wander into ravines, get caught in brambles, stumble into bogs, simply drift away from the flock and become separated. Finding a lost sheep can take hours, quartering back and forth across the hills, calling, listening, watching for movement. The dog helps enormously with this, using his superior senses to locate animals you would never find alone. The sound of the flock changes throughout the day. In the morning, it is eager, hungry, the tearing of grass more aggressive. By afternoon, it becomes drowsy, punctuated by the occasional bleat of a lamb calling for its mother or a ewe warning another away from her personal space. In the evening, it slows further, becomes almost meditative, a gentle background sound that accompanies the sunset. You have learned to hear problems in this sound. A sudden silence means something has alarmed the flock. A different quality to the bleating means distress rather than routine communication. The absence of sound from a particular area might mean sheep have moved away from where they should be. Your ears are tuned to this audio landscape as carefully as your eyes are tuned to the visual one. Sometimes, on quiet days when the flock is content and settled, you lie on your back in the grass and just listen. The sound of all that chewing, all those jaws working, all those animals processing grass into wool and meat and milk becomes almost musical. It is the sound of life sustaining itself, of the basic biological processes that underlie everything. It is purposeful without being urgent, constant without being monotonous. The grass itself grows back quickly here. The sheep cannot eat it faster than it regenerates, not if you manage the grazing properly, moving them before they damage the roots. This is the ancient bargain. The sheep eat the grass, they fertilize it with their dung, the grass grows back stronger. The cycle continues, season after season, year after year, unchanged since shepherds first brought flocks to these hills. You are part of this cycle now. You facilitate it, protect it, maintain it. The sound of the sheep grazing is the sound of your life's work, the purpose that brings you to these hills day after day. It is not a dramatic sound. It will never be recorded in any history, never be celebrated or remembered. But it is real, and it is important, and it connects you to something larger than yourself. As the afternoon light begins to lengthen, as the shadows grow longer and the air starts to cool, you stand and stretch. The flock is spread across the hillside below you, 200 white shapes against the green, all of them busy with the essential task of eating. The sound of their grazing continues, steady and patient and endless. This is your world. This sound, this sight, this simple daily reality. And for now, it is enough. Section 8. Sunset. The sky is turning the color of a bruise. Purple spreads across the western horizon, deep and rich, bleeding into orange and pink where the sun has just disappeared behind the distant hills. The blue overhead is darkening, becoming something heavier, preparing for the night that is coming. You have watched this transformation hundreds of times, but it never becomes ordinary. The scale of it, the way the entire dome of the sky shifts through its spectrum of colors, holds your attention completely. The temperature is dropping. You can feel it on your exposed skin, your face and hands, a sharp edge entering the air that was not there an hour ago. Your breath is beginning to show, small clouds that form and dissipate with each exhale. The wind, which has been moderate all day, is picking up slightly, carrying the cold down from the higher peaks. It is time to bring the flock in. You whistle to the dog, a short, sharp note, and he lifts his head from where he has been resting. He knows what this whistle means. He has heard it every evening at this time for years. Without waiting for further instruction, he trots downhill toward the scattered sheep, beginning the work of gathering them. The sheep know this routine too. They have been grazing in a wide dispersal across the hillside, but now they begin to move together, responding to the dog's presence, to the approaching darkness, to their own instinct to gather for safety. The dog circles wide, moving along the edges of the flock, turning any stragglers back toward the center. You can see his technique, the way he uses his body to suggest direction without forcing it, the way he applies pressure gently, patiently. You walk downhill toward the fold, the stone-walled enclosure where the flock will spend the night. It is not much of a structure, just a rough circle of stones piled waist-high, maybe 40 feet across. There is a gap on one side that serves as a gate, which you can close by dragging several heavy poles into place. The fold provides no roof, no real shelter, but the walls break the wind and create a protected space. More importantly, the walls keep the flock together, prevent them from wandering during the night. The sheep are moving now, flowing like water downhill, following the paths they know, heading toward the familiar safety of the fold. The dog works the rear, making sure no one is left behind, his movements economical and efficient. You position yourself at the gate, counting as the animals file through. 1 section, 2 sections, 3. The numbers look right. Everyone is accounted for. The last few stragglers hurry through the gap, bleating softly, not wanting to be separated from the main group. The dog follows them in, then circles back out, having completed his task. You drag the heavy poles into place, creating a barrier across the opening. It would not stop a determined predator, but it will keep the sheep contained, and any predator attempting to climb the wall will make enough noise to alert you and the dog. Inside the fold, the sheep are settling. Some are still moving, finding their preferred spots, but most are already lying down, their bodies pressed against each other for warmth. The collective heat of 200 sheep is considerable. On the coldest nights, you have stood at the wall of the fold and felt the warmth radiating from the packed bodies, envying them their numbers. A few sheep are chewing cud, their jaws working methodically. Others are already still, eyes half closed, beginning to drowse. The sounds of the flock are changing from the active noises of grazing to the quieter sounds of rest. An occasional bleat, the shuffle of hooves on stone, the soft exhalations of large animals breathing in unison. You walk the perimeter of the fold, checking the walls, making sure no sections have collapsed, no gaps have opened. The stones are solid, undisturbed since your check this morning. Everything is as it should be. The flock is safe, contained, protected as much as you can protect them. The sky continues to darken. The purple is deepening to violet, the orange fading to red, the pink disappearing entirely. The first stars are appearing, faint points of light in the eastern sky. The wind is steady now, cold and persistent, pulling at your cloak. You draw it tighter around yourself, fastening the clasp at your throat. You will spend the night here, outside the fold, keeping watch. You do this every night, have done it for 3 years, will continue doing it for as long as you remain a shepherd. It is the agreement. The sheep are never left unguarded during the hours of darkness. Something must stand between them and the night. You gather wood for a fire. There is not much wood on these hills, but you have spent the past few days collecting what you could find, dead branches from the rare twisted trees, dried heather stems, anything that will burn. You stack it near the fold, not too close, far enough that sparks cannot reach the wool of the sheep. You arrange stones in a circle to contain the fire, a practice so familiar your hands work without conscious thought. The dog watches you, sitting patiently, his job done for now. His eyes reflect the last light of the sunset, amber points in the gathering darkness. He will stay close tonight, alert for any danger, ready to sound the alarm if anything approaches. You strike flint against steel, creating sparks that fall onto a small bundle of dry grass and char cloth. The tinder catches, a tiny ember that you blow gently, nursing it into a flame. You add small twigs, building the fire slowly, letting it establish itself before adding larger pieces. The flames grow, yellow and orange, pushing back a small circle of darkness. The warmth is immediate and welcome. You position yourself on the windward side so the smoke blows away from you, and you hold your hands toward the flames, feeling the cold being driven from your fingers. The fire crackles and pops, wood releasing moisture, the sound companionable in the silence. Full darkness is coming now. The last light is leaving the western sky. The stars are multiplying, more appearing every moment, the familiar constellations emerging. You know them all, have spent countless hours studying them. They are your calendar, your clock, your entertainment during the long night watches. You settle onto the ground, your back against a smooth rock, your cloak spread beneath you as insulation against the cold earth. The fire burns steadily. The sheep are quiet. The dog lies nearby, his head on his paws, his eyes open. The night watch has begun. Section 9. The Night Watch. The darkness on these hills is absolute. There is no ambient light, no distant glow from towns or villages, nothing to dilute the pure blackness that surrounds your small fire. When clouds cover the moon and stars, you cannot see your hand in front of your face. The darkness becomes a physical presence, pressing against the circle of firelight, waiting to reclaim the space the flames hold. But tonight the sky is clear. The stars are emerging in their thousands, more than you ever saw in town, where the buildings blocked the view, and the torches and lamps created a pale glow that washed out the fainter lights. Here, the sky is transformed into something almost unrecognizable, a vast field of light, the stars so numerous they seem to touch each other. You lean back against your rock and look up. The river of stars crosses the sky from horizon to horizon, that great band of light that travelers call the Pilgrim's Path. It is brightest tonight, clearly visible, looking almost like a road made of crushed diamonds. You can see the shapes within it, the dark rifts and bright patches, the structure that suggests depth and distance beyond human comprehension. You have learned the constellations from your father, who learned them from his father. The hunter with his belt and sword, the bear that circles the North Star, the swan flying down the river of stars. The shapes are familiar friends now, appearing in their seasons, marking the passage of the year. It is autumn, so the hunter is rising in the east, beginning his winter reign over the sky. The stars do not twinkle as much here as they did in town. The air is clearer, less disturbed by heat and smoke. They burn with a steady light, cold and distant and eternal. Looking at them, you feel the vastness of creation, the smallness of your life against the age of those lights. Some of them, your father told you, are so far away that their light has been traveling for years just to reach your eyes. The fire needs attention. You add more wood, building it up for the long hours ahead. The flames leap higher, casting flickering shadows across the fold wall, making the stones seem to move. The sheep are invisible beyond the wall, just occasional sounds that indicate their presence. A soft bleat, the rustle of wool against wool, the sigh of a large animal settling more comfortably. The cold is intense now. Away from the fire, you can feel it waiting, ready to seep into your bones. But near the flames, you are warm enough. Not comfortable exactly, but adequate. You have learned to exist in this narrow zone between the fire's warmth and the night's cold, maintaining the balance that will allow you to last until morning. The dog shifts position, moving slightly closer to the fire. His thick coat protects him better than your wool protects you, but even he appreciates the warmth on a night like this. His ears are in constant motion, swiveling to track sounds you cannot hear. Every few minutes, he lifts his head, scans the darkness beyond the firelight, then settles again. He is on duty, as you are on duty, sharing the watch. Hours pass. Time moves differently during the night watch. Minutes can feel like hours when nothing is happening, when you are simply sitting in the cold and the dark, waiting for a dawn that seems impossibly far away. But then you look at the stars and realize they have moved significantly across the sky, that hours have actually passed while you sat lost in thought or in the peculiar not quite sleeping state that comes during long nights of wakefulness. You think about your family, your mother and father and sisters in their house in town, probably asleep now in their warm beds, the fire banked, the shutters closed against the night. You wonder if they think about you, here on the cold hillside, keeping your lonely watch. You send money back with your master, and the money is useful, perhaps essential, but you wonder sometimes if they would trade the money for your presence, for having you back among them. Probably not. There were too many mouths to feed already. Your leaving made space, made the household economics slightly easier. This is why younger sons become shepherds or soldiers or monks. The land cannot support everyone, so some must leave, must find their purpose elsewhere. You do not resent this. It is simply the way things are, the structure of the world. Everyone has their place, their role to play. Yours is here, on this hillside, watching over animals that belong to someone else. The fire is burning low. You add more wood, the last of what you collected today. Tomorrow you will need to gather more, always thinking ahead, always preparing for the next night's watch. The new wood catches quickly, flames wrapping around it, the light intensifying briefly before settling again. A shooting star streaks across the sky, a brilliant line of light that appears and vanishes in less than a heartbeat. You make a wish, automatically, though you are not sure you believe in such things. Still, the old habits persist. Wish on a shooting star. Throw salt over your shoulder. Touch iron for luck. Small superstitions that connect you to your childhood, to the beliefs your mother taught you. The night is perfectly still now. Even the wind has diminished, dropping to almost nothing. The silence is profound, broken only by the crackle of your fire and the occasional small sound from the fold. It is the kind of silence that makes you aware of your own breathing, your own heartbeat, the small noises your body makes simply by existing. You are alone under a vast sky on a cold hillside in the middle of nowhere. This is your life. This is the choice you made, or the choice that was made for you, or simply the way things happened. However it came about, this is where you are, guardian of the hills, keeper of the night watch. And looking up at the stars, feeling the cold and the solitude and the strange beauty of this life, you find that you are content, not happy exactly. Contentment is not the same as happiness, but there is a rightness to this moment, a sense that you are where you belong, doing what you were meant to do. The stars continue their slow wheel across the sky. The fire continues to burn. The sheep sleep safely behind their stone wall. The dog keeps his vigilant watch. And you sit in your small circle of light, a single human consciousness in the vast darkness, bearing witness to the ancient rhythms of night and day, season and year, life and death. This is enough. This is everything. Section 10. The Danger. The howl comes from far away, carried on the wind. It is thin and distant, almost lost in the susurrus of moving air, but unmistakable once you hear it. Long and lonely and full of hunger. A wolf's song, calling across the empty hills, announcing its presence to any who can hear. The dog's head snaps up. His ears are fully erect, pointed toward the sound. A low rumble starts in his chest, not quite a growl, just a warning. He rises to his feet, his body tense, his attention completely focused on the darkness beyond the firelight. You feel your own body responding. Your heart rate increases. Your hand goes automatically to your crook, lying on the ground beside you. You rise slowly, scanning the darkness, seeing nothing but knowing something is out there. The wolf, perhaps more than one. Hunters in the night, drawn by the scent of the flock, testing to see if the guardian is awake and alert. You add more wood to the fire. The flames leap up, pushing the circle of light outward, reclaiming space from the darkness. Fire is the first defense. Wolves are intelligent animals. They know fire means humans, and humans mean danger. The light alone might be enough to keep them at bay. The dog barks once, sharp and aggressive, a challenge thrown into the night. I am here. I am awake. You will not pass. You move to stand beside him, your crook in your hand, peering into the darkness. Your eyes, adjusted to the firelight, can see almost nothing beyond its glow. The wolf could be 100 yards away or 20 feet away. There is no way to know. You listen for the sound of movement, for the scrape of claws on stone, for the soft pad of paws on grass. Nothing. Another howl from a different direction. Or is it the same wolf having moved? The sound seems to circle you, coming from everywhere and nowhere. This is part of the terror wolves inspire. They are invisible, silent when they want to be, able to appear suddenly where nothing was moments before. The sheep inside the fold have sensed the danger. You can hear them moving, rising to their feet, pressing together, the collective defense of prey animals. Their bleating has changed tone, become higher, more fearful. They know the smell of predator, the presence of death nearby. Generations of evolution have programmed this fear into them. You whistle sharply to the dog, a specific pattern. Stay close. Defend the fold. Do not give chase. The last thing you need is the dog running off into the darkness after a wolf, leaving you alone and the flock vulnerable. The dog understands. He positions himself between the fire and the fold, his body coiled and ready, his eyes scanning the darkness. You wait. Minutes pass. The howling does not come again. The silence stretches out, tense and watchful. You hold your crook ready, though you know it is an inadequate weapon against a wolf. The staff gives you reach, allows you to strike from a distance, but a determined wolf is fast and strong and equipped with teeth and claws. Your chances in a direct fight are not good. But you are not alone. You have the dog who is bred for this, who knows how to fight predators. You have the fire, which creates a barrier wolves are reluctant to cross. You have the fold walls, which force any wolf to expose itself climbing over them. And most importantly, you are awake and aware. Wolves prefer easy prey, sick animals or sleeping shepherds, situations where the advantage is clearly theirs. This shepherd is awake. This shepherd is armed. This shepherd has a fire and a dog and the will to defend his flock. The wolves can calculate these odds. They are not mindless killers, but intelligent hunters who understand risk and reward. More time passes. Still nothing. You begin to think perhaps the wolves have moved on, decided this target is not worth the effort. There are easier meals elsewhere, rabbits and deer, unwatched sheep on some other hillside. Then you see the eyes. 2 points of light reflecting the fire, low to the ground, perhaps 30 feet away. The wolf is sitting just beyond the circle of light, watching. Not attacking, not retreating, just observing, testing your vigilance. The dog sees it too. His rumble becomes a proper growl, his lips pulling back to show his teeth. He takes a step forward, and you put your hand on his shoulder, holding him back. Do not engage. Not yet. You and the wolf regard each other. You cannot see its body, just those eyes, unblinking and alien and cold. How long does it sit there? Minutes, certainly. Perhaps longer. Time has become strange, stretched out by adrenaline and fear and the weird clarity that comes in moments of potential violence. Then the eyes blink out. The wolf has turned its head or lowered its gaze or simply faded back into the darkness. You wait, breathing carefully, listening. Nothing. No sound of movement, no additional howls. Just the wind and the crackle of the fire and the gradually calming sounds from the fold as the sheep realize the immediate danger has passed. The dog remains tense for a while longer, but gradually he relaxes, his growl fading, his body uncoiling. He circles once and lies back down, though his eyes remain open, still watchful. The crisis, such as it was, is over. You sink back down to your sitting position, suddenly aware that your legs are shaking. The fear catches up to you now that the danger has passed, a cold weakness that makes you grateful you can sit. Your heart is pounding. Your mouth is dry. You take a drink from your water skin, the liquid cold and steadying. This is part of the work. The wolves come regularly, testing, probing, looking for weakness. Usually they do not attack. Usually the fire and the dog and your presence are enough to deter them. But sometimes they do attack, and when they do, sheep die. You have lost animals to wolves, found the bodies in the morning, torn and bloodied. It is a pain every time, a failure, evidence that you did not protect them well enough. But tonight they are safe. Tonight the wolves chose to move on. Tonight you were vigilant enough, intimidating enough, lucky enough. You feed the fire again, building it higher than necessary, making a statement to anything watching from the darkness. I am here. I am awake. I will not fail. The stars continue their slow movement. The night continues its patient progression toward dawn. The sheep settle again, their fear fading, their trust in you and the dog restored. And you return to your watch, more alert now, your body thrumming with residual adrenaline. Sleep is impossible. You will be awake until dawn, sitting by your fire, guarding your flock, keeping the darkness at bay. This is your purpose. This is what you do. And you will not fail. Section 11. The music. Your fingers are stiff with cold, but you pull the wooden pipe from your belt anyway. It is a simple instrument, carved from ash about the length of your hand. 6 holes along its length, a 7th on the underside for your thumb. You made it yourself during last winter's long nights, whittling carefully by firelight, testing the sound, adjusting the holes until the notes came true. It is crude compared to the fine instruments you have seen in town, the elaborate flutes owned by minstrels, but it works. It makes music, and that is all you need. You warm the pipe between your hands, breathing on it, bringing it closer to body temperature. Wood changes its sound when it is cold, the notes going flat and dull. You have learned this through trial and error, have learned all the small secrets of the instrument through patient practice. The night is deep now, the hours between midnight and dawn when time seems to stop, when it feels like morning will never come. The fire has burned down to embers, glowing red, providing warmth but little light. The stars overhead are brilliant, so many they seem to blur together in places. The cold has intensified, that deep bone cold of autumn nights that promises winter is not far away. You bring the pipe to your lips and blow gently, testing. The sound is soft, breathy, the first note finding its pitch. You adjust your fingers, try again. Better. You run through a simple scale, warming up, your fingers remembering the patterns. Then you play. The melody is an old one, a tune your mother sang when you were a child. A simple thing, just a handful of notes repeated with variations, but it holds meaning beyond its simplicity. It reminds you of home, of the time before you came to these hills, when the world was smaller and safer and contained within the walls of your town. The sound carries in the cold air. On a still night like this, music travels far. You have played for the sheep before and felt that they listened, their chewing pausing, their heads turning slightly toward the sound. Whether they actually appreciate it or are simply curious about the unusual noise, you do not know. But it soothes them, and it soothes you, and that is enough. You move from one tune to another, a working song next, something farmers sing during harvest. The rhythm is steady, meant to pace physical labor, to make the hours pass more easily. Your fingers find the pattern automatically. You have played this song 100 times, maybe 1,000. The dog lifts his head, listening. His ears twitch with each change in the melody. He has grown accustomed to these night concerts, understands they are part of the routine. After a moment, he settles again, content that nothing requires his attention. Playing the pipe requires breath control, a steady pressure that creates consistent tone. It is harder in the cold, when your lungs feel tight and your breathing wants to be shallow and quick. But you have practiced in all conditions, have learned to compensate. The music continues, quiet but clear, a small human sound in the vast non-human night. You play a dance tune next, something from a festival you remember attending as a boy. The tempo is quick and light, meant for bodies moving, for feet stamping and hands clapping. Playing it here, alone on a dark hillside, creates a strange contrast. The joy of the tune against the solemnity of the setting. But the contrast is not unpleasant. It reminds you that joy exists, that life contains lightness as well as darkness, celebration as well as labor. Your fingers are warmer now from the playing, the movement helping to drive blood to your extremities. The pipe itself has warmed too, and the sound improves, becomes richer, more resonant. You hold a long note, letting it fade slowly into silence, then begin another tune. This one is sacred, a hymn sung in churches, a melody you heard every Sunday in your childhood. It is slower, more solemn, designed for large spaces and many voices. Played alone on a pipe, it sounds different, more fragile, but no less beautiful. The notes rise into the night air and disappear, carried away by the slight breeze, dissolving into the vastness. You think about all the other shepherds on all the other hillsides, scattered across these highlands and beyond, each one keeping their own lonely watch. Are any of them playing music tonight? Are there other small sounds of humanity being offered to the indifferent night? Or are you the only one, the only person in miles making music for an audience of sheep and stars? The thought does not depress you. Instead, it feels like a kind of defiance. The world does not need this music. The night will continue whether you play or remain silent. The stars will wheel through their patterns, the cold will deepen, the dawn will eventually come, all regardless of your small sounds. But you play anyway. You create beauty for its own sake, not because it achieves anything, but simply because you can. Because you are human, and humans make music, even here, even alone, even when no one is listening. You play a lullaby next, a tune your mother sang to you and your sisters when you were small. The melody is gentle, repetitive, designed to soothe. Sitting here in the darkness, playing this song, you feel connected to her across the distance, across the years. This tune traveled from her lips to your ears to your memory to this pipe, and now it travels again into the night. It is a thread connecting you to your past, to your family, to the person you were before you became this person. The last note fades. You lower the pipe and sit in silence for a moment, listening to the quiet. The fire has burned very low, just a glow now, barely visible. The darkness has reclaimed most of the space around you, but you feel less alone than you did before you played. The music has filled something empty, reminded you of your humanity, given you a sense of connection to the world beyond these hills. You tuck the pipe back into your belt and add more wood to the fire, rebuilding it, pushing the light outward again. The night is not over. There are still hours to go before dawn, but you feel better, stronger, more able to face those hours. The music has done its work. And tomorrow night, you will play again. You will pull out the pipe and blow your simple tunes into the darkness, not because you must, but because you can. Because it is one of the few purely human things you do on these hills, one of the few activities that exists beyond the bare necessities of survival. Music for music's sake, beauty for beauty's sake, a small rebellion against the emptiness, the solitude, the relentless practicality of shepherd life. And it is enough. Section 12. The meal. Your stomach reminds you that you have not eaten since midday. The hunger is not urgent, not painful, but persistent enough to demand attention. You reach for your leather satchel, the one that hangs from your belt, and extract the simple provisions you packed this morning. A chunk of hard cheese wrapped in cloth. A piece of dark bread, dense and coarse. This is your dinner, the same meal you eat most nights, simple and adequate. The cheese is made from sheep's milk, produced by the women in the valley during summer when the ewes are still nursing lambs. It is aged until it becomes hard, almost rock-like, capable of lasting months without spoiling. The flavor is strong, slightly sharp, with a crystalline texture that crunches between your teeth. You cut a thin slice with your knife, the blade sawing through the resistant surface. The cheese goes into your mouth, and you chew slowly, breaking it down, letting the flavor spread across your tongue. It is good cheese, nutritious and filling, though you have eaten so much of it over the years that you barely taste it anymore. Still, it provides what your body needs. Fat and salt and protein, fuel for staying warm through the cold night. The bread is rye, baked in large batches by the village baker, hard enough to survive being carried around in your satchel for days without crumbling too badly. It is dark brown, almost black, with a heavy texture that requires serious chewing. There is no butter to soften it, no honey to add sweetness, just the bread itself, plain and honest. You tear off a piece and work it in your mouth, mixing it with the cheese, the two flavors combining into something marginally more interesting than either would be alone. Eating is a slow process when the food is this simple and this hard. You cannot simply swallow. You must chew thoroughly, breaking everything down, giving your stomach a chance to process it. But this slowness is not unpleasant. It makes the small meal last longer, gives you something to do with your hands and mouth, creates a ritual that marks the passage of time. You think about the meals you ate in your childhood. Your mother's stew, rich with vegetables and occasional pieces of meat. Fresh bread, still warm from the oven, soft and yielding. Roasted chicken on festival days, the skin crispy and salty. Apples from the tree in your neighbor's yard, sweet and tart, juice running down your chin. Beer, weak but flavorful, served in wooden cups. All of that feels like a different lifetime now. That person who ate those meals, who took them for granted, who sometimes complained about the food, seems like someone else entirely. That boy did not understand how good he had it, how much effort went into creating those meals, how precious were those moments of sitting around a table with family, eating and talking and laughing. You understand now. Now that you eat cheese and dark bread alone in the darkness, now that days pass without hot food, now that every meal is solitary and functional rather than communal and pleasurable. But understanding comes too late, as it always does. You cannot go back and appreciate what you had. You can only sit here with your hard cheese and harder bread and remember. The dog watches you eat, his eyes tracking the movement of your hand from satchel to mouth. He has been fed already, earlier in the evening, the scraps from your midday meal plus whatever he caught during the day. But he is always interested in food, always ready for more if more is available. You cut a small piece of cheese and toss it to him. He catches it in midair, swallows it whole without chewing, and continues watching hopefully. You take a drink from your water skin, washing down the bread and cheese. The water is cold, almost painfully so, making your teeth ache briefly. But it cuts the richness of the cheese, cleanses your palate, prepares you for the next bite. You will need to refill the water skin tomorrow, find a spring or stream, carry back enough to last another day. Always thinking ahead, always planning the next task, the next need. Another piece of bread, another slice of cheese. The meal is monotonous, but your body receives it gratefully. You can feel the food settling in your stomach, being converted to warmth and energy. In this cold, you burn through calories quickly, just maintaining body temperature. The cheese and bread are dense fuel, efficient if not delicious. You remember feast days in town, tables laden with food, more dishes than anyone could possibly eat. Roasted meats and pies and cakes, vegetables prepared a dozen different ways, sauces and gravies and condiments. People ate until they were stuffed, ate beyond hunger into discomfort, simply because the food was there, and the occasion demanded celebration. You thought that was normal then, the way life should be. Abundance and variety and the freedom to be wasteful. Here you waste nothing. Every crumb is consumed. Every drop of water is valued. You have learned to appreciate food in a way you never did before, not for its flavor or variety, but for its fundamental purpose, keeping you alive. The cheese and bread do this job well. They are not exciting, but they are reliable, and reliability is more valuable than excitement when you are alone on a cold hillside. The last of the cheese disappears. You fold the cloth it was wrapped in and return it to your satchel. The bread is nearly gone too, just one more piece remaining, which you save for tomorrow's midday meal. You brush the crumbs from your lap, making sure nothing is wasted. The dog watches these crumbs fall to the ground and licks them up, his tongue efficient and thorough. Your stomach is satisfied now, not full but no longer empty. The hunger has been addressed. You can continue your watch without distraction. The meal, simple as it was, has served its purpose. You sit back against your rock and let your hands rest on your knees. The act of eating, of performing this basic human function, has made you more aware of your body, its needs and limitations. You are tired, you realize. The long day of walking and watching, the tension of the wolf encounter, the constant vigilance required by your work, all of it has accumulated into a deep weariness that sits in your bones. But you cannot sleep. Not yet. The night is not over. Dawn is still hours away. You must stay awake, must maintain the watch, must be ready for whatever comes. So you shift position, trying to find a more comfortable arrangement of limbs and cloak, and you settle in for the remaining hours of darkness. The cheese and bread have done their work. Your body has the fuel it needs. The rest is just endurance, the mental discipline to stay present and alert when every instinct is calling you towards sleep. You can do this. You have done it countless times before. The night will end as all nights end. Morning will come as it always comes. And you will still be here, still watching, still performing the task that has become your life. One night at a time, one meal at a time, one moment at a time. This is how you survive. Section 13. Entering the hut. The eastern sky is beginning to lighten, just barely, a subtle shift from pure black to something slightly less absolute. Dawn is coming, though it is still perhaps an hour away. But this first hint of light is permission to end the watch, to retreat to the hut for a few hours of sleep before the day's work begins again. You have lasted through another night. The flock is safe. Your duty, for now, is complete. You stand slowly, your joints stiff from sitting so long in the cold. Your back protests, your knees crack audibly. You are not old, but this life ages a body, wears it down through exposure and hard use. You stretch carefully, feeling muscles reluctantly extend, blood flow sluggishly to extremities that have been compressed and still. The fire has burned down to ashes, grey and cold-looking though they still hold some heat. You kick dirt over them, making sure nothing remains that could spark and spread. The fold is quiet, the sheep still resting, many of them asleep. They will wake when the sun rises properly, will begin their day of grazing. But for now they are still, safe within their stone walls. The dog rises when you do, ready to follow. He has dozed through parts of the night, but has never been fully asleep, always maintaining some level of awareness. Now he shakes himself, his coat rippling, and stretches in his own way, front legs extended, back arched. Together you walk toward the hut, visible now in the pre-dawn darkness as a darker shape against the hillside. Your feet know the path without needing to see it clearly. You have walked this distance thousands of times, early morning and late evening, in all weathers and all seasons. Your body navigates automatically, while your mind is already thinking ahead to sleep, to lying down, to the blessed relief of not being upright and alert. The hut seems smaller somehow in the darkness, more like a box than a dwelling. The curved roof is outlined against the slightly lighter sky. The single window is dark, empty. The wheels underneath are invisible, but you can sense them, can feel the slight elevation that comes from the structure sitting on its axle rather than on the ground. You reach the door and pause, one hand on the rough wood. Behind you, the hills stretch away into the darkness, vast and empty. The fold is a small stone circle, the sheep within just suggestions of shape. The dog waits patiently at your side. Above, the stars are fading, the brightest ones still visible, but the fainter ones already lost to the coming dawn. This moment always feels significant somehow. The transition from the outside world to the inside space, from the public role of guardian to the private role of merely yourself. Out here, you are the shepherd, responsible and vigilant. Inside, you can stop performing that role, can be just a tired man seeking rest. You open the door. The leather hinges creak, the same sound they make every time, familiar and somehow comforting. The darkness inside the hut is complete, deeper than the darkness outside. You step up, the height of the wheels making this more of a climb than a step, and duck your head to clear the low doorframe. The smell of the hut envelops you immediately. Wood and wool and smoke and your own scent, layered together into something that has become synonymous with safety, with rest, with home such as it is. Your eyes, adjusted to the darkness outside, can see almost nothing in here. But you do not need to see. You know every inch of this space, could navigate it blindfolded. The dog does not follow you inside. He has learned this boundary. Outside is his domain, inside is yours. He will find a spot against the side of the hut where it provides some shelter, and he will sleep there, maintaining his vigil even in rest. You hear him turn, hear the soft sound of him settling, and then silence. You close the door behind you, shutting out the wind, the cold, the vast emptiness of the hills. The darkness inside becomes total. You stand for a moment, letting your presence fill the small space, announcing your return to this wooden box that serves as sanctuary. Your hands find the shelf, the familiar objects arranged there. The candle, precious and rarely used. The flint and steel. You could light the candle, but why waste it? The darkness does not bother you, and you need no light for what comes next. Sleep requires no illumination. You remove your belt, hanging it on its peg. The weight of the knife and the other small items falling away is a relief. Your outer tunic comes off next, also hung on a peg. You keep the inner tunic on, and your hose, and your heavy wool stockings. You will sleep in these, needing their warmth. The bed is 2 steps away. You navigate by memory and by feel, your hands finding the wooden frame, the rope webbing, the straw mattress beneath its wool covering. You sit on the edge, feeling it compress under your weight, hearing the familiar creaking of rope and wood. Your boots come off last, unlaced and pulled free, set carefully beside the bed where you can find them if needed during sleep. Your feet, released from their leather prison, feel suddenly alive, tingling as blood flow increases. You flex your toes, feeling the relief. The bed is narrow, barely wider than your shoulders, but after sitting on cold ground all night it feels luxurious. You swing your legs up, lie back, feel your body sink into the unevenness of the straw. Your heavy cloak, which you carried inside with you, spreads over your body as a blanket. The wool is still cold from the outside air, but it will warm quickly from your body heat. The hut rocks very slightly, the motion of your settling on the bed transferred through the structure to the wheels and back again. It is like being in a boat, that gentle sway, and it is surprisingly soothing. The hut is solid enough to protect you, but light enough to remind you of its mobility, its temporary nature. You lie in complete darkness, completely still, feeling your body begin to relax. Your muscles are loosening, tension draining away. Your breathing slows, deepens. The cold that has been nibbling at your extremities all night is retreating, driven back by the wool and the enclosed space and your own body heat. Outside, the wind continues to blow. You can hear it moving across the hillside, rustling the grass, but in here you are protected from its force. The wooden walls, thin as they are, make all the difference. You are separated from the elements, given a space that is yours alone, private and sheltered. This is what the hut provides. Not comfort, not luxury, but separation. A boundary between you and the world, a place where you can stop being vigilant, stop performing your role, stop being anything other than a body that needs rest. You close your eyes, though in this darkness it makes no difference. Darkness behind your eyelids is the same as darkness before them. But the gesture feels right, feels like giving permission to sleep, like acknowledging that the night's work is done and rest has been earned. The last thing you are aware of before sleep takes you is the solidity of the walls around you, the roof above you, the wheels below you. This small wooden box on iron wheels is keeping you safe. It is not much, but it is enough. And you are grateful for it, this simple shelter, this home. Section 14. The bed. The bed beneath you is layered, like everything else in your life. At the bottom, rope webbing stretched across a wooden frame, creating a surface that gives but does not collapse. The rope is old, darkened by age and use, some strands beginning to fray. Eventually it will need to be replaced, but for now it holds, supporting your weight night after night. Above the rope lies a thin mattress stuffed with straw. The straw crackles when you move, shifts and compresses, creates pockets and ridges. It is far from uniform, far from comfortable by any civilized standard, but it keeps you off the hard wooden frame, provides some cushioning, some give when you lie down after a long day. The straw is not fresh. It should be replaced more often than it is, but fresh straw requires a trip to the valley, a negotiation with farmers, an expenditure of time and energy, and sometimes money. So you make do with what you have, occasionally pulling out the most compressed sections and fluffing the rest, redistributing the material to create a more even surface. Above the straw mattress lies a sheepskin, wool still attached, laid fleece side up. The sheep this came from died 2 winters ago, succumbed to the cold despite your efforts. You skinned it properly, treated the hide, let it dry. Now it serves as padding, as additional warmth, as a connection to the animal you failed to save. The wool is matted in places, worn thin in others, but it still provides softness that the straw alone cannot. More sheepskins lie folded near your feet, available to pull up if the cold becomes intense. Sheep provide everything on these hills. Wool for your clothing, milk for your cheese, meat occasionally, skins for your bedding. You live surrounded by their products, dependent on them for nearly everything. Dried heather is scattered among the straw, placed there deliberately for its smell. When you lie down, when your weight compresses the mattress, the heather releases its scent, sharp and clean and slightly medicinal. It reminds you of summer, of the purple hillsides, of warmth and long days. In winter, when everything is cold and bleak, this scent is a small comfort, a reminder that summer will come again. You have added other herbs when available. Chamomile sometimes, if you can find it growing in sheltered spots. Lavender, though it grows poorly in this climate. Mint from the streamside. These additions are not strictly necessary, serve no practical purpose, but they make the bed smell less of sweat and sheep and more of something intentionally pleasant. They are a small luxury, a minor rebellion against the purely functional life you lead. The wool cloak that covers you is heavy and dense. It traps your body heat, creating a warm pocket of air between your skin and the cold of the hut. The weight is reassuring, like being held, like having presence and substance above you in the darkness. You have slept under this cloak for 3 years. It knows the shape of your body, has molded itself to your contours. Your head rests on a small pillow, nothing more than a cloth bag stuffed with more wool, cleaned and carded. It is lumpy and shifts when you move, but it elevates your head slightly, makes breathing easier, keeps your neck from being cramped against the bed. You made this pillow yourself, awkwardly stitching the cloth with thick thread, overstuffing it initially until you learned better. The bed is narrow enough that you cannot spread out. You sleep on your side, curled slightly, one arm tucked under the pillow, the other pulled close to your body. This position conserves heat, minimizes your exposed surface area. It is also the only position that fits comfortably in the available space. Sometimes in sleep you try to turn over and you bump against the wall, waking briefly before settling again. The hut has trained you to sleep in specific positions, to move carefully, to stay within the bounds available. You have become practiced at sleeping in small spaces, at remaining still for hours, at finding rest despite discomfort. The sounds of the night outside are muted by the walls but still audible. The wind moving across the hillside, the occasional distant bleat from the fold, the dog shifting position. These sounds do not disturb your sleep. They are expected, familiar, part of the texture of every night. Silence would be more disturbing than these known sounds. Sometimes, rarely, you dream. In dreams, you are back in town, walking familiar streets, entering your family home. Your mother is cooking. Your sisters are arguing over something trivial. Your father is bent over his workbench, cutting leather. Everything is as it was, and you are filled with a sense of belonging, of being exactly where you should be. Then you wake, and you remember where you are. The small hut, the hills, the solitude. The disappointment is sharp for a moment, then fades as full consciousness returns. This is your life now. Those dreams are visits to a past that no longer exists, not for you. The boy who lived in that house is gone, replaced by this man who sleeps alone on a hillside. But more often, you do not dream. You sink into a deep, dark sleep that feels like falling, like disappearing, like ceasing to exist for a time. This sleep is not restful in any pleasant sense. It is more like unconsciousness, your body and mind simply shutting down from exhaustion, taking what rest they can get before the demands of the new day begin again. Your body knows how much sleep you need and wakes you accordingly. There is no clock, no alarm, just an internal sense that the necessary hours have passed. You will wake when the sun is higher, when the morning is established, when the sheep have been grazing for an hour or two and need checking. For now, though, you are suspended in darkness and warmth and the comfort of lying horizontal. Your muscles are releasing their tension. Your breathing is slow and deep. Your mind is quieting, the constant vigilance of waking life fading into the blankness of sleep. The mattress cradles you in its uneven way. The sheepskin is soft against your cheek. The heather scent fills your nose with each breath. The wool cloak holds the warmth close. The walls keep the wind away. You are safe here in this small space for these few hours. Nothing can reach you. Nothing demands your attention. You are allowed, briefly, to simply be, to exist without purpose or duty. The bed, crude as it is, uncomfortable as it is, provides this gift, a place to rest, a place to let go, a place to restore yourself for the next day's work. And you are grateful for it, this nest of straw and wool and herbs, this horizontal refuge from the vertical demands of waking life. You sink deeper into sleep, your breathing barely audible, your body utterly still. Rest comes. Section 15, Drifting Off. The edges of consciousness blur and soften. You are aware, dimly, of lying in darkness. The bed beneath you, the cloak above you, the walls around you. But these awarenesses are fading, becoming less distinct, dissolving into something that is not quite waking and not quite sleep. Outside, the fire has died completely. The ashes are cold now, grey and lifeless, no different from the soil around them. The circle of warmth they provided is gone, reclaimed by the ambient cold of the hillside. In a few hours, you will rebuild it, starting the whole cycle again, but for now it is finished, its purpose served. The sheep in the fold are deeply asleep now, most of them. Their breathing is slow and synchronized, 200 pairs of lungs moving in an accidental rhythm that sounds almost like waves on a shore. The collective warmth of their bodies has created a pocket of relatively warm air within the stone walls. They are comfortable as sheep can be, protected and fed and safe. The dog is dreaming. You cannot see this from inside the hut, but you would recognize the signs if you could. His legs twitching slightly, running in his sleep. A soft whine escaping his throat. His eyes moving beneath closed lids. What does a dog dream of? Chasing rabbits, perhaps. Working the sheep through some perfect maneuver. Or perhaps, like you, he dreams of rest itself, of lying in sunshine on warm grass with no duties to perform. The wind has not stopped, but it has changed character. The fierce edge has gone out of it. It is blowing more gently now, steadily, the way it does on peaceful days. It moves through the long grass with its eternal susurration, bends the heather, explores the contours of the hills. It will blow like this all day, into the evening, into the next night, forever. The wind does not tire. The wind does not need rest. Above, the stars are fading as dawn approaches. The eastern sky is growing lighter, though the sun itself has not yet appeared. Purple is becoming blue. Black is becoming grey. The transformation is gradual, almost imperceptible moment to moment, but inevitable. Day is coming, as it always comes, pulling light back into the world. Soon the sheep will wake. They will rise to their feet, shake themselves, begin to graze. The lamb will seek their mothers. The ewes will call to their young. The flock will flow out through the gate when you open it, spreading across the hillside to find fresh grass. The daily routine will begin again, the cycle repeating, today identical to yesterday and tomorrow. But for now, in this suspended moment between night and day, between waking and sleeping, everything is still. Everything is quiet. Everything is exactly as it should be. You are sinking deeper into sleep now. The last threads of awareness are letting go, releasing their grip on waking consciousness. Your thoughts are becoming disconnected, dreamlike, following their own logic. Images float through your mind without context or meaning. Your father's hands, the church bells, a sheep with an injured leg, the taste of your mother's stew, the wolf's eyes, your sister laughing, the stars wheeling overhead. None of it makes sense, and none of it needs to. This is the border country between waking and dreaming, where the rules are different, where meaning is optional. Your breathing is barely perceptible now. Your body is utterly relaxed, every muscle released, every tension dissolved. You could be made of wool yourself, soft and formless, compressed into the shape of the mattress beneath you. The hut rocks gently, almost imperceptibly, moved by a stronger gust of wind. The motion is soothing, maternal, like being rocked in a cradle. The structure creaks slightly, wood and rope adjusting, settling. These are the sounds of home, familiar and comforting. Outside, the world continues. The hills remain. The grass grows. The wind blows. The stars wheel through their ancient patterns. All of this continues whether you are awake to witness it or not. The universe does not need your consciousness. It functions perfectly well without you. But for these few hours, you need to stop witnessing. You need to let the world take care of itself. You need to surrender to the darkness and the warmth and the deep pull of sleep. And you do. The last thought drifts through your mind. You are safe. The sheep are safe. The dog is watching. Your duty is done. You can rest now. And you do. You drift away, consciousness fading like the stars at dawn, present one moment and gone the next, leaving only darkness and warmth and the deep, dreamless sleep of exhaustion. The shepherd sleeps. The hills keep their ancient watch. The wind continues to blow. And as the wind continues to blow over the dark hills, the hut remains steady and warm. The flock is safe, the dog is watching, and your watch is ended. You are alone, but you are not lonely. The solitude that once seemed like a burden has become something else, something almost like peace. Tomorrow you will wake and do it all again, the endless cycle of watching and waiting, the slow rhythm of shepherd life. But for now, wrapped in wool, surrounded by walls, you rest. The hills will be here when you wake. The sheep will need you, the work will continue. But for these few precious hours you are released. You are free to simply be. Sleep well, shepherd. You have earned it. The end.